Don't
No,
think
people are
about
listening.
it.
People are listening. They
I
don't
just feel
care
like
how
I
it's
look
that.
huge. This is going well. Anyway, it's really alright. The start bit is always the cringiest bit. Okay. So Tasha, Sheridan, welcome.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm all right.
I'm actually very, very excited about this. We have so much to talk about.
We need 5 hours. It needs to be in like 10 parts.
Yes, but that's fine. Maybe that's what this will become. Tasha may possibly get her own season 2. Will just be the Tasha Sheridan.
I'd like that.
Podcast. Yeah.
I'm all right with that.
You're all right with that?
It won't have any listeners, but I'm happy with it.
Would you not want to do a podcast yourself?
Yeah, because I love listening to podcasts.
Yeah.
But then I think, do I have anything that's of any interest to talk about?
Everyone does.
And there's always so many topics that I think, oh, that's interesting to delve into. That might be interesting. But it's finding the time. When am I going to have time to...
True.
Well, you make the time.
You do. And it's just having that focus. But I think the reason that I actually managed to do this is because, like, well, this is just what I know.
Yeah.
It's just so easy. And as we discussed with last week's guest, it's like, I feel as nearly everyone, when I run into people, it's like no time has passed.
Yeah.
Which is lovely.
Yeah, it's like we all have a little secret. It's like, oh.
Secret club.
Oh, I know him.
Yeah.
Art said.
It is.
And no more needs to be said about it. It's just, oh, that's it. Oh, it's Matthew. Oh.
Yeah.
Great.
Completely. And do you know what? I was watching, not that it's the same, we can't compare ourselves to the cast of Friends.
Well, we can.
You know, you can, but when they did that reunion and they said if they ran into each other at a party, that would be it for the end of the night because they would just gravitate towards each other. And I feel that way. It's like, I suppose I feel comfortable with everyone.
Yeah, and I think it's because to live the true college experience, you have to lay yourself bare. And to be able to do that, you need to be in a safe space with people that you can trust. And I think that we were really lucky with the people that we were at college. You did feel that you could do that.
Yeah.
Some people were able to do that day one in an acting class. Some people took longer. So I think we've all seen each other, warts and all. We've seen us at our best, and we've seen ourselves in the absolute pits of despair.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's history there, isn't there? There's stuff that we've seen and shared that we're not likely to share with other people again. That's only if we choose to. It was a real lived experience.
Absolutely. Talking about your experience from college and leaving college, being a leading Western lady, which is an amazing achievement. Not everyone gets to do it. To being an amazing mum, to being a working mum, so much to talk about. But I want to go back to the beginning, like prior to college. But before I do that, I always want to start with a memory of everyone. And with you, do you know what? It's a really bizarre one. With you, it was a really bizarre situation where two of my worlds collided. And this was after, I think we were in our third year at college, but I grew up in Lincolnshire. And we have a mutual friend, Marianne, who we love, who had a mutual friend of my probably closest childhood family friends, the Juices. And walking into their house in Lincoln and you and George being there was like one of the most bizarre experiences of my life, because it's that was my world before college, my childhood, and I was like, how is Tasha Sheridan and George from college in this house that I spent a lot of my childhood? It was just bizarre.
Yeah.
And I always remember that, and like how that, I suppose it's when you go to weddings, isn't it? And all these like weird people come together. So don't worry, there's no bad memory, but I just always it's a bizarre one. But I was thinking of all things, I was like, well, that's something that's never really happened with anyone else at college, is like those worlds colliding as much.
Yeah, and it's always a strange experience, isn't it? Because it's so insular at college, and your life at home is so insular. So yeah, for the two to merge. Well, yeah, because I've gone to see her. She was doing Crazy for You, wasn't she, in Lincoln? Yeah,
so I always remember that. And that house is, I don't know if you remember it, that house should have a TV show about itself. It's one of the most bizarre, amazing houses I've ever been to in my life. Anyway, Tasha Sheridan, going back to the beginning, you're from South Oxfordshire.
Yep.
Tell me about Tasha as a child. Like, how would you, like, it's not easy, but how would you sum up your childhood? What was Tasha like?
Oh, God. Well, I think I was a bit of an annoyingly nice child. My mum has...
How terrible.
I know. My mum has enjoys telling me about how I'm such a horrible grown-up to her now. And I was such a lovely child. You were so nice to me as a child, Tasha. You were so nice to me as a child. You're horrible to me these days. And I think I was. I loved music. I loved the theatre. But it was never anything that I imagined that I would be doing in my life. I spent all of my early childhood saying that I was going to be a teacher, which ironically I do a lot of various bits of teaching in various different formats now. But I always said I wanted to be a primary school teacher. But I loved music. I loved singing.
Yeah.
Music was a big part of our lives. My mum sang in church. She led the worship. So there was lots of music. And it's now as an adult, I realise how much I took for granted how accessible going to the theatre was for me. I mean, I always felt that I was miles away from London and I'm so far away. I can't wait to move to London. It's like 60 miles away. It was like 40 minutes on the train. It was so close, you know. Come to college. I remember having a conversation with Hollydale Spencer. She was like, I've never been on the tube. I was like, what do you mean you've never been on the tube? How have you got to 18 and never been on the tube? Because, well, of course she wouldn't. She was from the Midlands. She wasn't coming to London like I was. Yeah. So theatre was always a big part of our lives, and we would go to the theatre a lot, whether that was at the Apollo in Oxford or coming into town to see something. I would always be watching musicals. I would always want to sing along, and I loved it. But I was always just very reluctant to go anywhere to do it. Yeah. And I remember Mum sort of saying about various places I could have done. She worked for the Oxfordshire County Music Service at the time. But I was, pre-teen, then 12, 13, 14, just a bit awkward. And really, what do parents know? They don't know anything.
Yes.
So
true. And if your parents as a teenager say, you should do this, you're like, no,
absolutely not, Mum. I'm not going to that stupid music singing group that you're telling me about with your friend Lynn. I'm so not interested about Lynn and the singing group. That is mortifying.
Interesting. I started dancing when I was very young, but I didn't start dancing because my mum wanted me to. It's because I literally couldn't keep still. And it was like a thing of just send him to that, I think. So it fits. But that's interesting you say you wanted to be a teacher. So you weren't like, I want to move to London, I want to go to drama college. So how did that change? Where was that?
So that all came about by a chance conversation on the big school field at Didcot Girls' School one lunchtime. A girl in my year from my village, she did loads of dancing, loads of singing. She went to loads of different drama groups, danced every style possible. And she was talking about the group that she went to and about how good it was. And there were 3 of us in this conversation. And the other girl was like, yeah, but my group that I go to, Soy Mad, is better than that. And I remember thinking, that's that singing thing with that Lynn woman that my mum's been going on about that I've never wanted to do. And then went, yeah, my God, that's so much better than your group. Like, that's the group you should be going to. Like, Tasha, you don't know what you're talking about. You've never been, you refused to engage any topic of conversation about said singing group. And now here you are waxing lyrical on the school field about how that group is way better than any group that this other girl could possibly be going to.
So you dug a hole, a bit.
A little bit. And then it was a Wednesday and I went home and I said to Mum, I want to do that drama singing group thing. And she just stopped. It's like, what? Yeah, that drama thing, I want to go to it. Can you ring? Like, come on, Mum. Make it happen for me.
Away.
Can you sort that? So, God love my mum. And, my parents were always so whatever you wanted to do, they would always try and find a way to make that work for you. And she picked up the phone and was like, okay, I'll try Lynn. I'm not sure I'm going to get through to her. Because there were no mobiles then, kids.
No.
There were no mobiles. It was the landline. And fortunately, she caught Lynn just as she was about to leave the door to go and teach said group. Yeah. And was like, you're not going to believe this, but Tasha wants to come. And Lynn said, well, look, it's the last one of term. So I've got a separate singing group because we've got a concert, but there is the drama group going on in the other hall. She can go and do that. I was like, right, okay, I'll do that. And I can remember what I wore. With these little
Please tell us.
black jean shorts, frayed jean shorts, and you know, it was a white like kid's school shirt, but it was sleeveless. I want to say it was an Airtex shirt. So it had the little collar and the buttons.
Yeah.
And a full bare leg. I mean, I'd never do a full bare leg.
Do you remember planning putting that outfit on, or was it just that was just what you were wearing?
I don't know. I think I must have planned that that's what I was going to wear.
Because I think, how old were you?
14.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. By that age, you're very conscious of.
Yeah.
Yeah. What you're wearing.
And I wasn't people might have thought I was confident. I certainly didn't inwardly feel that. And I just remember walking into this group of noise and people.
Yeah.
And they were laughing and they were having fun. There was camaraderie. And I was like, oh, they're all here. Here they all are. My people. This is it.
Yeah.
This is where they are. This is where they've been hiding. Within 5 minutes of joining in a drama exercise, wow, this is it now. This is what I'm doing. This is what I'm doing. This is it. This is it. I found my place. I found my people. Because at school, I wasn't overly academic. I'm sure if I'd have applied myself a bit more, I could have done. But it never came easily. I had to really work at those subjects. I refused to join in any drama at school, though. Didn't do anything at school.
But I think there's so much more exposure at school to be criticised. Like drama clubs were a safe space because people went there wanted to go.
Yes.
Whereas drama at school, you had to do it.
Yeah.
It's interesting as well you say that, because I was just thinking, you went to that safe space. When you go to dance school, it's a very different experience, isn't it? Like that's what I remember. Like I remember dance school being quite intimidating and scary. And yes, you have a laugh, but there is more a military thing about dance school, isn't there? I'm not saying everywhere's like that. And that just made me think, that is what's so wonderful about drama groups. There's always games and people laughing and having fun.
And because it was an end of term, it was a fully improvised session, still structured from the lady that was leading it, but it was based around improvisation games. And I just thought this was the best thing ever.
Yeah.
That I could pretend to be somebody completely different in every single exercise and have fun with it. And all the other people that I didn't know would just go along with me and do it.
Yeah.
That was brilliant. And I just walked out and went, no, that's it, sign me up, I'm going again. That's it. It's my new thing. And
so where did you go from that? I mean, I will say your voice is you've got an incredible voice, and do you feel like that was slightly in your DNA as well because of your family and music? But I also think you've got a gift. Yeah,
I think so. I just was very lucky that if I went to sing along with something, I just happened to be able to sing it.
Yeah.
I never really struck until later on. I'm sure we'll talk about that later. But yeah, at that moment, I could just sing. It was okay. It was easy. The tough part come. That's terrible English. The tough part came.
The tough part comes. It's a bit Midlands that actually.
The hard part was how I would translate those stories I was able to tell in those improvisations when I was singing a song, and that's what I had to work on, because I just sort of took for granted that I could sing the song. I didn't always think about actually what I was singing. I was probably a bit of a lazy.
Oh, don't worry, I didn't start doing that until I was like late 20s.
Yeah.
I look back at college and
acting through song.
Yeah.
What's that?
I wish I'd really just I look back and go, all I cared about was hitting notes and stuff. It's funny, isn't it? And they try and tell you that telling the story is more important, but when you're young, all you care about is
Can I sing that big note?
Yeah. Oh well. What then happened between that time and auditioning for drama college and getting into college?
So that was then a weekly group, and then when you got to sixth, I think it was when you went to sixth form, it would have been that age, there was GCSE year, it was the older group. Yeah. So you had SOIMAD, which was the South Oxfordshire Youth Music and Drama group, and then you had OYMT, which was the Oxfordshire Youth Music Theatre group. Okay. So we were then very old and very mature at 16. And school yearly, you would put on a show. So every rehearsal each week was putting on that show. So, and I was it was a really special time, and there were really good people that went to it. I could shoehorn in that, that lesser known actor Oliver Thompson. It was his mum Judy that ran the drama group.
But I love all these connections because everyone I've interviewed so far, there's always a connection of someone that was at Arts Ed.
Yeah. Marianne went.
Yeah.
Mark Isles, who was an Arts Ed boy, he went. There was a real group of us at that time doing these shows. So the first show with them, we did The Boyfriend, and I was Hortense the French maid. And then what really cemented it for me was the second show was when we did Me and My Girl, and I played Sally. Ollie was Bill. And it was just the most wonderful experience. Aside from the fact that during that school year, I also got glandular fever and was off school for about 3 months.
Oh, really? I did not know that.
Yeah.
Well, that's interesting because someone else in our year got glandular fever later on in their career, and it's awful.
Oh, it was awful. I was so ill. It always affected my throat, and I mean, and even now as an adult, if I get ill, the first thing that will go is the glands in my throat, and my throat will go. That's just how it is. And doing Me and My Girl, I was like, this is it. This is what I have to be doing. I love this. This is such an escape for me. This, whatever's going on in my day, whatever might be going on at home, I knew I would go to that rehearsal on a Monday night, and that would be that. You could leave that behind, and I could go into this make-believe world, and I loved it, and I still continue to love it.
Do you not, for those years between 16 and 18 are amazing? Like that 18, I went to college like 18 to 21, which is amazing, but 16 to 18 for me, it's a magical time.
Yeah, because you're just starting to sort of discover yourself a little bit, not fully.
And you find your people.
It's finding your people. And I think that for me was the most important thing above all else, because I just didn't feel like I fitted in at school.
As many of us didn't.
I just, I was fortunate that I was always able to go between every different group, whether they were the popular kids, the not so popular kids, the brainy kids, the clowns. I could be a bit of a chameleon, and I could go between them. Whereas with my people at that group, I could just be whatever Tasha needed to be sometimes on that day, or my true self. It was.
You're a great conversationalist. I think that's a skill that you have as well, isn't it? Which
yeah,
is
and I thrive off of energy of other people.
Yeah.
So, and I love playing. So if somebody wants to play and do something silly, I'm there. I'm ready to do.
Which is why we had our many alter egos that were created at college that we won't discuss.
Many alter egos at college. Like I love that. So being at OYMT, Ollie being the year above me at school, and I then started to hear these sort of, topics of conversation around going to drama school, and I was like, I'm liking the thought of this, going to drama school. And he was auditioning for this place called Arts Ed.
Yeah.
And a bit like with me proclaiming that Soy Mad was the best, drama group you could ever. Well, suddenly I need to go to Arts Ed.
Yeah.
I'd done no research. If Ollie was going to go there and Ollie was good, then that was where I needed to go. I wanted to go straight away. My parents were very certain on having to stay and do A-levels.
You could actually go then when you were 16, couldn't you?
Yeah. But they were like, absolutely not. You need to do your A-levels. And I think also because there was no way. I mean, they couldn't afford it when I did eventually go. There was no way they could have afforded that 2 years earlier.
No, it was madness.
And also, I was too young. I think going at 16 for me probably wouldn't have been right.
Yeah.
It was right for other people, not for me.
No, I actually do know someone that went when they were 16, who then came back to Lincoln, and I did amateur shows with, and it kind of, I think, really affected her mentally. It was just too young.
And I mean, I actually ended up going when I was 19 because I didn't get in the first time I auditioned.
Yeah. Which in a way is a great life lesson for the industry.
Oh, wow. I mean, talk about setting me, straight away.
Yeah. I actually know a few other people that didn't as well, though.
Yeah, and I do look back and go, well, I'm not surprised I didn't get in that first year. And everything works out for a reason in life, because that first year when I didn't get in, Maz did get in. We're best mates, and I just don't think us two being in the same year would have worked out, because we were always compared and we were always told that we were very similar. We couldn't be further apart. We've never had the same casting.
But you get compared.
Ever.
It would have been
but
like
we
that.
were
That
two
famous.
tall girls with bleached blonde hair from South Oxfordshire, both at Arts Ed, could both sing well. Oh, you're the same.
It's like that great. What was that great rivalry between the two actresses? It would have been like that.
What, Betty Davis
Yeah.
and Joe Crawford? What happened to Baby Jane?
And then that's an alternate universe.
Yeah, absolutely. So then going the next year was good, and then I could get all the tips from her about how to survive this college life.
Marianne's in this podcast a lot. Marianne was actually my buddy because we got buddies, and
Was she your buddy?
Yeah,
I never had a buddy.
No, she wasn't. Someone else was my buddy, but because of the Lincoln connection, she called me anyway, and she was great. She got me so excited. She was like, "You're not gonna be able to do the splits." I remember her saying, "But by the end of the year, you'll have your head will be in your knees, and you'll be in splits, and it'll be great." Like, what I love about her, she came at me with such a positive attitude that made me more excited for it. Well, right, we get to college. You're in. College was such an impersonal, intense thing that we don't want to linger too much on that. But if you were to sum up those 3 years,
oh God,
it's not easy. But how would you?
How to sum it up? I bloody loved my time at college.
Yeah.
I absolutely loved it. It was the hardest and easiest 3 years of my life altogether.
That's such a cool way of putting it. I know completely what you mean by saying that.
Easiest because I felt like I was finally doing something to get to where I wanted to go.
Mm-hmm.
So it was easy. Well, singing and dancing and acting every day. Well, that's easy. I can do that. Bottom dance set. So, we won't linger on that. Hardest because it's so hard. It was so hard. Friends of mine that went to uni, they'd be like, "Oh, I don't have anything on a Wednesday." What do you mean? You don't have anything on a Wednesday?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I have a half day on a Thursday. A half day. If I'm not in by 8:30, I'm banned for the day.
Yeah.
And my lessons finish at 6, sometimes 6:30. What?
Yeah.
What do you mean you're not in on a Wednesday?
This is what's so hard to explain to people, and that's why it is so intense. And
it was then. I think it's different now because of a degree structure for a lot of the courses, but for us then, there were no free periods.
No. I was saying to someone the other day, you'd sometimes either decide whether to go to the toilet or just ignore that and get to the lesson first, so you could mentally prepare yourself.
Oh my God, that's so true.
Or do I keep my sweaty jazz clothes on, or do I just go and do the class in my sweaty jazz clothes?
Yeah. There was no time for thinking. There was no time for pausing. No. Which is probably good and bad in equal measure, because I still don't pause or stop to think now as an adult. But it does train you well, because rehearsal periods for shows are intense.
Yeah.
Like college. They are long days. And that really did that we were trained for that. But yeah, it was hard.
Yeah.
And I probably was very tough on myself because I didn't have a scholarship when I started. But I knew if I worked hard, there was a chance I would get one. Because statistically people fall out. Statistically people drop out of college.
Yeah.
They may have had a scholarship. If I've worked hard, I might get it. So Maz was the model for me, because she didn't have a scholarship, she worked hard, and she got awarded one at the end of the year. So I was like, if I keep my head down and work hard, and I'm not afraid of hard work, that could happen. But it was always in the background, because so much money was being spent for me to go there.
Just to pay rent.
Just to
buy lunch.
Yeah,
it's madness. You forget about the other stuff, don't you? You forget it's not just the college tuition. We had to live in London.
We lived in Chiswick.
Yeah.
Chiswick, the most expensive place we could possibly be trying to live.
Yeah.
And this cost my family a lot of money. So I had to get that scholarship. I had to work hard.
Which you did.
Which I did. I did
you
work
were
hard.
So focused. You were one of the most focused people I knew, actually.
Because I knew that I had to be. There was no sitting on my laurels. I felt like I had something to prove. I was like, I know I can do this. I know I am good enough and worthy enough to have a scholarship. I know how some of these scholarships are given out, that it's just default that I haven't got one. So just...
Well, there was that boy-girl balance, which we can just say is that...
Yeah, every boy had a scholarship.
But the government were literally like, well, there's more women in the industry that do this, so we have to give more of them to the boys. But unfortunately, that didn't always seem fair, because then some of the boys that were awarded them just took it for granted.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, wow, yeah, and I was given a scholarship from a boy that failed the year.
Yeah.
So I worked hard, kept my head down, and fortunately for me, or because I worked hard, so in the first year you have different projects each term. So one term you'll do a dance project, you'll do an acting project, and then you'll have the musical project. And our musical project was South Pacific, and I was cast as Nellie. And because of that, and I remember, I knew how much was riding on that. And I remember in one of the runs just before show day, and the director had said, "You've got to take that extra step, Tasha. You are holding back. You've got to. I know that." And I was like, I am giving everything.
It's really hard at that age, though. I was so insecure about it. I was insecure to smile at that age.
And what I think it was, and what I've again learnt going through the business, because another director told this to me sometimes, it was having that trust and belief to just leave everything else behind and to fully live in that moment. And I think when it got to that performance, and they said that to me afterwards, he said, you walked out and I just knew that it was going to be brilliant. I could tell straight away that you had just gone, right, here we go. And I've got great memories of doing that. I mean, I washed my hair in a bucket of water in the studio theatre at Arts Ed. I mean...
That's still in my memory. I didn't go, oh, you don't remember that. I was like, oh, yeah, I remember that.
I mean, iconic.
I unfortunately have to say that your iconic moment for me at college were those huge glasses.
My huge glasses, Viv in Spend. Oh, I love playing that part.
They were like this.
They were Deirdre Barlow glasses.
My mum actually used to have them, and when you walked out in that, but that was just an amazing experience. Right, we could focus on college for so long, but we're gonna zoom to the end. You did some amazing stuff at college, though, Tasha. Will say that, and I'm not just saying this. You were inspiring.
Oh, thank you.
I always remember like the shows, because we did every show together, I think. Good News, Lady in the Dark, Spencer and Spend, and Gospel. We were in all the same shows, and I always looked up to you and admired your work ethic and your talent. So, thank you.
Oh,
and
thank you.
I'm not just saying that. So Tasha has got to the end of college. It's 2004. We're wearing low-rise bootcut jeans and cami tops.
And a studded belt.
As big as possible.
That we do up on the side, not at the front. We do up at the side, sometimes at the back.
Yeah.
Oh, God.
And everyone's hair is straight and no one has curly
Everyone's
hair.
got straight hair.
Apart from Holly Dale Spencer once in a while. So...
Straight hair, dyed by Wayne.
Yes, absolutely. So Tasha's got there. What was your expectations, like honesty in your head leaving college versus the reality that you were faced with? Because I said this to you and I was like, oh, Tasha went straight into work, but...
Well, it's the perception of time. And I think I was really lucky that I had a good part in the very first show. And you do this awful thing after the end of each show. You go out into the student bar and like the agents are there and it's like lambs to the slaughter. Are the agents going to come over and give you their card? Do they give cards still? I thought they don't give cards. And one agent came and spoke to me. And it wasn't that I wasn't thrilled, but I was like, one. Like, well, that means
even though that's actually what it takes.
Yeah. Oh, okay. And I was like, well, don't just sign with them, because there's other shows coming
Yeah.
up in the year. And then he was like, I'll look forward to watching you through the year. And I basically had no other interest. And I was like, oh, okay. Don't know why I felt... But then this is the trouble, isn't it? Because I saw other people being approached by 4 or 5 agents. I wanted to be approached by 4 or 5 agents because you are bred to want to succeed.
Yeah.
And you are pitted against each other because you are each other's competition.
Yeah.
Although I look back now and go, I was never in competition with Amy Pemberton because we're very different casting.
Absolutely.
I'm never going to be up for the same part as she is because she's brilliant at what she does and I'm brilliant at what I do. We're never going to do... But I can see that now. But at the time, I was like, why am I not Amy? She's amazing.
Yeah.
She still is amazing.
I used to feel that about people. I used to be at Grio and like, why am I not a handsome heterosexual man? Because I'm not.
Because you're not. Because you're not. You're brilliant as you.
Yeah.
But at the time, that's very, you are comparing yourself to everybody else around you. Had another great part with the big glasses in Spend. Loved doing that show. Still just the one agent. He was very faithful to, and I remember Chris saying to me, he was like, well, you only need one.
Yeah.
And he's one of the most successful agents, Tasha. What are you... Why?
And he wants you.
And he wants to sign you. What? Basically, get over yourself. You've got an agent who has people working on their books and he will get you these castings. It's like, yeah. And I think because I was lucky to have those roles, I was like, well, surely then I'm going to just work.
Yeah.
And you get the auditions and you don't get the first one, don't get the second one, didn't get a recall for the third one. Oh my God, I've not got the fourth one. And you're going, am I ever going to work? And during that final term, you're allowed to audition.
Yeah.
Even though people were probably doing it a little bit earlier. And I just felt that everybody else was getting work and I wasn't. And that wasn't the case, was it? Loads of people were.
No.
But the ones that are getting the work seem the loudest voice in the room.
Yeah.
And
some people didn't even have agents. Some people were still fighting to get an agent.
Yeah. So I was like, oh God, so I'm graduating and I don't have a job. I'm graduating on the Friday and I'm back to my job at Topshop in Richmond the next day. Oh,
Do
God.
you think that stems back to that pressure of college and your parents and you feel like, well, I've done this, so I have to have success straight away?
Yeah, and it's not that anybody else was putting that pressure on me. That was all.
Yeah,
that's all my.
I've heard that
that's
from a
my
few
own.
people.
That's my own demons,
Yeah.
and that's something that I still now I'm like, who's putting that pressure on you to do that? That's you. There's no one else doing
No.
that.
Students still do it now. I know someone that graduated recently who I worked with, and I was speaking to her about that. I was like, don't do that to yourself. But it's hard not to.
It's hard not to. And I was then, back to my job at Topshop, going, oh my God, I've just graduated from...
Can we just talk about, did you work at Topshop the whole 3 years?
I worked at Topshop the whole time.
I love these. I worked at Blockbuster Video for 3 years.
Yeah,
These...
because I'd worked at Miss Selfridge in Oxford before going to college, and I managed to transfer to the Topshop in Richmond, worked there every Saturday.
It's amazing we did it, isn't it? Like the graph.
Oh God, I mean, I was
While
knackered. I was knackered.
Monologues, music, trying to have fun.
Absolutely knackered.
And one thing, quickly backtracking, we still had a lot of fun.
We had a lot of fun.
This is the thing, people think, oh, you must have not done it. It's like, oh
No.
no, we probably partied harder sometimes than people that were at uni.
And we laughed.
So
my
much.
God, we laughed so much.
I'm laughing.
We laughed all the time. Those nights in that student bar were raucous because I think everyone had just worked so hard every day all week. You had to have that release on a Friday night. And then I would get up to go to that shop on Saturday morning, absolutely hanging, going, I can't believe.
Because VK Blues were £1.
Yeah, that I've now got to go and deal with the general public in Richmond who want to come and return the jeans that they've clearly worn out the night before. So I'm back to my day job, and I was like, sod this. I'm going to New York for a month.
What?
So I remember ringing my mum and she's like, what? She's like, maybe I'll come. No, I'm going on my own. I'm going to New York for a month. I'm just going to do it. And I had some, money left over from when I'd, my 18th birthday, a few £100 or whatever. And, because this is when flights to New York were relatively cheap.
Can you remember when this was, the exact date?
Summer of 2004 it was.
Because I went in September 2004 the first time. And I remember, we just missed each other.
And had the most amazing time in New York. I mean, so green around the gills. I didn't know what I was doing, where I was going. Walking along the road going, I've heard them talk about Fifth Avenue on Friends. Oh, there's Saks on Fifth Avenue. Walking along, not realising that Fifth Avenue is the entire length of Manhattan. Yeah. Like, you're walking the wrong direction, Tasha. You don't know what you're doing. I can remember you saying to me, this must have been when Jennifer Lopez on the Six album came out.
It was around.
Because I remember you saying to me something about being on the subway, about being on the Six.
Of course, well, if it was
me.
You
did.
It would have been a music reference. Yeah. As you know, if it was me, it was something to do with music.
Jennifer Lopez on the Six. And yeah, went to New York, had an incredible time there, came back, was still auditioning, not getting jobs, getting feedback that I didn't get a job because I was a bit weighty. Oh. God. So that was a bit mortifying. And yeah, I had put on weight when I went to New York because I was 21 and I was just eating and drinking solidly for 4 weeks. I put on weight when I went to New York
as well. I saw a photo recently and I think suddenly we left college. We weren't doing 6 dance classes a week plus this. And you don't think at that age. You just, I know you worked hard. I remember you and Kerry going to the gym in like the 3rd year.
Oh my God.
But yeah, of course.
Yeah.
We will talk about this. We've had big conversations about this. A lot of us, how we're all so much healthier now.
Oh my God.
And in so much better shape now.
In much better shape. Absolutely. It's tricky because the business, no matter how far we think the world has come, we do still live in a world where thin equals good and fat equals bad. And yes, things are changing, body positivity movements, but we do unfortunately work in a business where your appearance does matter because that's what sells you.
Yeah.
And it shouldn't always matter, but it still sometimes does matter.
Yeah. Healthy should matter, not thin. And that's the problem, isn't it?
Which is, it's hard, and there's no doubt that even now, as a grown up, as a child, I feel at times, that inner voice of needing to look a certain way, being a certain weight, still stays with me. And I was told, and I was put on the scales at college and told I needed to lose weight, which I can also now see was more about them and the generation of how they were brought up dancing and what your figure needed to be. But it was such a tender age for me then to be told that, and I'm then eating a few rice cakes a day, wondering why I'm so hungry. It's not good. And it now means now as an adult, I refuse to weigh myself.
Good, because it doesn't mean anything.
All I hear is somebody saying to me, you should be 9.5 stone. So if I ever stood on a scale and I wasn't a 9.5 stone, which newsflash, I don't think I ever have or will be because I would look dead.
Yeah.
It was just a number they'd picked out of thin air.
When people say to me, I know it's different as a guy totally, but when people say how much you weigh, I'm like, I don't know.
No.
And I actually thinking about it, I don't care because someone's weight doesn't equal how they look.
No.
It's bizarre, isn't it?
No. So that was a hard part of college and trying to fit where, what my look versus my talent, my voice, my acting ability matches. Well, you've got to make the decision. You either need to lose a bit or you need to be really fat.
Yeah.
Or maybe I'm, just
okay how I am.
Just okay how I am, and that will sort itself out in life. But anyway, I'm back from New York. Yeah, I've put on a bit of weight. I don't get guys and dolls because I'm a bit weighty. And auditions are now happening for Mamma Mia. And we were really lucky because we had great audition workshops, didn't we, at college? We had people coming in from the shows in town.
So lucky. took it for granted, really, when I think
Yeah, we
about it.
did. And we'd had the resident director from Mamma Mia come in, and he'd said to me then, you know, oh, you would be great in the show, so if there's any problems of being seen, let me know. And I didn't get an audition, and I pushed, and I still didn't get the. And I said to my agent, I went, well, we've tried. I was like, no, I know I'm right for this show. And Ollie Thompson's in it, so obviously I'm going to be in it as well. Because, hello, OYMT, Arts Ed, Mamma Mia, that's what's going to happen. So I then actually emailed the resident director myself, and literally within a couple of hours, my agent rings, darling, I've had a call, they want to see you. I've had a call, I've managed to get you seen.
Listen, I love agents, but they will take credit for stuff that you know you've done yourself. And so many people. And also I say to people, don't be afraid to do that. Don't just email people for the sake of it. But if you know you're right something, they've said it, do it. Life's too short.
I think I had more balls then than I do now to do that. Because I was, however old I was, 22.
Nothing to lose as well.
I had nothing to lose. I was, now working full time at Topshop in Richmond, and I needed a job.
Yeah. Yeah.
I needed a job. But that period of time felt so long, because those auditions used to happen in the October. So I've only graduated in the July, and felt like it felt like a barren wasteland where I was never going to work.
Nearly just 2 months, really.
Whereas, throughout my career, I've had like 7 years between jobs.
Yeah.
So what was a couple of months? But at the time, when you graduate, and graduates are thirsty for that work.
It's your whole world.
It's your whole world.
And there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with that, I think, at that point.
And you are in audition rooms with other graduates. You are like for like, and you are... It's a lion pit, isn't it? Everyone is like... But it felt such a long time from graduating. But then a call came in on my lunch break at Topshop Richmond to give my agent a ring back. And I can remember being stood in the staff room, and he just went, you got Mamma Mia, you got it. And I was like shaking. I remember getting my equity diary out, shaking right in here. He went, somebody called Conchita's going to ring you. Oh, okay. To sort out about costumes and I was like, oh my God. And then I just think I was insufferable at Topshop for the rest of the day.
Just like bouncing off the walls.
Literally bouncing off the walls. I was like, this is it. And it was it. It was, what a call to get. You're going to be, your first job is in the West End. In one of the most successful shows of the time. And it's still there bloody 20 years later.
And how amazing, to reflect and look back. People get very cynical about these things as we get older, but at that time, that's why we went to college. That's what we went to do.
Yeah.
And well done.
Yeah. That's why we were there. That was why I was there early every day, learning everything and doing everything, and probably being a bit insufferable and annoying everybody.
Yeah.
And being a teacher's pet.
I just said, like you were. Sorry.
Yeah, you were totally insufferable. But I think I probably was. I think we all were at times. We all were a bit annoying at times. That's, we wanted to do it. And there are so few parts for everybody that you've got to fight for it. And if you don't, then you won't get it.
What I will say is everyone finds their fight, and I think we learned this at different points. Like don't underestimate people as well, because people sometimes at 21 we're not there.
Yeah.
Do you see what I mean?
Yeah.
Okay, so Mamma Mia, what do you remember about that first year?
So the first year I was in the ensemble, second cover Lisa, and luckily for me, from our year also, Eugene was in the cast.
Yes.
Claire Fishington was in the cast.
This is a lovely story, actually, to say that, three of you. And I think that's probably the only time it's ever happened in a show.
Well, probably then.
Yeah.
Now, Arts Ed still flies the flag.
Yeah.
But there's still lots of Arts Ed graduates and alumni.
I think there's a secret contract. No, I'm joking.
I think it was just Art Ed was training for real triple
Right, and it's exactly what it is.
threat performers.
For those of you who don't know what triple threat is, it's basically someone who can sing, dance, and act, to just shorten it, really.
Yeah. To a very high standard.
To a high standard, you should say that.
So the three of us were like, oh my God, we're at the West End.
Yeah.
Mamma mia. And it was brilliant. It was brilliant. But again, hard work. Learning extensive harmonies, because back then all of the backing vocals were live, because there was space in the theatre to have the vocal booths at the side of the stage. So it's probably the most singing I've ever done on a job. You do your number on stage, then you run off and you're instantly doing the BVs for whatever solo's going on stage.
What a great experience, though, to transfer that if you ever go into the recording studio and stuff, really.
Yeah, it was hard.
That's interesting you saying that as well, because I just think you're such a solid, confident singer.
Yeah, but when you've got to blend it with the ABBA sound, you know, standing where you're supposed to be standing, you know, we would have specialist booth calls, and to get the sound right, it was intense. Very, very intense. But doing Mamma Mia, oh my God, we had the time, we literally having the time of our lives. We were. You've got a young cast. And you just, it was great. It was great fun. And me being me, I look around and go, like a little bit more than second cover, Lisa, please. Yeah. Lovely to have that, but I quite like where that girl stood at the front. I'd like to quite like a go at that one. I want to be there, please. And again, worked hard, got on well with people. I had a great rapport with the creative team.
Which is what it's all about, being professional and not causing problems. And yeah. I was never late, never called off sick. Which I'm now, you know, I've learned in life that it's okay to call in sick. Yeah. You are allowed a day off if you're sick. There are literally no prizes at the end. Well, no, you do. You would get a magnum of champagne if you went through the year without a sick day. But then you get older and go, I don't actually care about the magnum of champagne. I actually could have just bought that. Yes. I actually could have just bought that with my wages. And it's not like I would have probably missed it because I was young in the West End earning money. That's an interesting thing to talk about though as well, because I think actually post-COVID, people are so much more like wary of like spreading stuff. Whereas I think about it, I probably spread a few chest infections around a cast because you just went on. Yeah. Doctor theatre. We were taught that at college. You carry on. And I mean, yes, obviously, if you're really, really ill, don't come in. But I think our mentality of Doctor theatre is something that doesn't always happen now with the graduates that are coming out who will call off for anything. Yes, unfortunately. No shade, but... Like, if I called off every time I felt a little bit under or a bit tired, I'd never be in. Yeah. Because I'm knackered all the time. Yeah. All the time. So Mamma Mia was great, and when you get towards the end of a contract, you're sort of, you know, given these letters. It would be an email now, wouldn't it? It wouldn't be a letter. It wouldn't be a piece of paper. You know, would you like to stay on? Would you like to leave? If you would like to stay, are you happy to stay as you are, or would you like to be considered for something else? I thought, well, I'd like to be first cover Sophie. I think that'd be lovely. I'd like to be first cover Sophie. So that was where I was sort of aiming for. And then after many auditions for that and a very, very long, tough final audition day, thinking that I was auditioning just for the first cover, I got the role. Do you remember that call or the news? So I knew that I had first cover because at the same time I was also auditioning for Guys and Dolls. So I really find this as my sliding doors moment. For a big reason as well, because so Guys and Dolls, their cast change was happening exactly the same time as Mamma Mia. You find that sometimes with shows that
a lot of shows will cast change. They'll have the last show on the Saturday night, new casts going on the Monday, so you might double up in rehearsals, rehearse and play at the same time. And this was happening with Guys and Dolls, and I was auditioning for that and got offered Guys and Dolls, and they offered me, I think, a second cover Sarah Brown. I don't think it was a first cover. So I went to Mamma Mia and said, look, I've got this offer. What? And they were like, well, we can't guarantee anything yet. And I was like, okay, but I'm being pushed here with Guys and Dolls. There needs to be something of value that's going to match.
Oh.
Flashlight.
Sorry, we just had a power surge.
Flashlight. And they were like, okay, you will be either Ali or Lisa, and you will have the first cover Sophie.
Yeah.
Is that enough to keep you?
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, Guys and Dolls, second cover Sarah Brown. Or do I stay with this show that I love and know that I've got those guaranteed 4 holiday weeks on a Sophie?
Yeah.
So I chose Mamma Mia.
Yeah.
And so when it got to the finals day, so I'd been off the first cover with Philida, the director. My resident director had seen me do scenes and stuff. She had never seen me do anything. So I still had to, although I had been offered it, had to do all this material for her. There were other girls in, to match up the Ali to my Lisa, whichever one I was going to be. And then during the course of the day, I just was being asked to do more and more and more of the Sophie stuff. And I was like, okay, it's a bit overkill, but okay. We want you to do it with this guy, and now this guy, and now this guy, and now this person that's auditioning for Sky. And this was this was on a Sunday. We were there from like 10 in the morning
On a
Sunday. And yeah, I was like, wow, this is intense audition for an Ali or Lisa first cover, but okay. Didn't matter. I just was like, no, it's for the Ali Lisa. It's for the first cover. That's what it's for. Reading with another arts ed graduate, Gareth Derrick. He was reading Sky. He was, 2 years above us?
Yeah.
2 years above us. And having to do awful things in the audition room like, okay, thank you, Tasha and Gareth. I'd really like you to do that scene again in your own words. Let me just vomit in my mouth. Like, it was hard. It was a hard audition day. So then the next day, I got a text from my resident director going, are you free to meet for a coffee at 5 o'clock, I think it was.
Not on the Sunday.
On the Monday.
Okay.
And I was
it's a long Sunday.
It's a long Sunday. And I was like, okay. And I remember thinking, and my first thought was, they've taken the offer away. And
this is how they let me down.
This is how they let me down. And I've got a good relationship with my resident. He's going to tell me that. So my whole day, I was just like, this is going to be that pit of the stomach, absolute sick feeling. And we met at Costa Coffee on Shaftesbury Avenue. It used to be across the road from Les Mis. It's now
existed then.
It's now a Leon.
Okay. I remember when it was a stagey Leon for a while.
Stagey. And it just felt like the longest time to order coffee. Why is this coffee taking so long to be made? Oh, okay, we're now taking the tray. We're walking slowly down. I was just like, this is like, I'm being taken to my death. I'm being sweetened up with a latte at Costa. And we sat down and he's like, hey, have you had a nice day? And he's making small talk. And I'm thinking, enough of the small talk. And he just took a sip of his coffee and he said, good day yesterday. Oh, was it? He went, how would you feel about moving from dressing room 6 to 5? Because 5, I'm sure it was those numbers. Because 5 was the Sophie room. And I was like, what? We'd like you to be our Sophie. And I was just like, like crying in the Costa coffee, shaking, trying to think. I was thinking, oh my God, and I just didn't. I was like, I need to ring my mum. My mum needs to know, you know. And it was just it's such an incredible feeling. And then the moment of, how am I now walking into that building tonight, knowing that all the other girls also want to be first cover Sophie or a second cover Sophie, or they want to play the part. I'm really good friends with the girl playing Sophie, and I'm now going to be taking over from her. How do I play this? What? And I also know that the current first cover has said she'll leave if she doesn't get the role, and I'm really good friends with her. So it was incredible, but I was going straight into the building where I work, and it was tough. And I'm never like to speak for people, but I think I could safely say, especially like with Claire Fish, she was like, well, what am I going to be then? I don't know what there is now for me. What am I? Because we all wanted to do it. We all wanted to be it. So, and it was really tough then, that expectation of what the girl in the chorus is going to be. The second cover Lisa's going to be Sophie. She's not even understudied the role of Sophie.
But it's just so interesting to talk about and so complicated. Like, there's just so much more to getting the part, isn't there? And all the politics and not upsetting people that are your friends, and it was
hard.
a lot.
It was a lot. It was a lot, and there was a tense few weeks whilst they're sorting out the jigsaw puzzle of the rest of the casting and where does everybody fit. And then we knew that Gareth had got Sky because he was also in the ensemble, so that was nice. But it was tough, and then rehearsing a leading role whilst you're still hoofing it in the ensemble every night was hard. That was exhausting. I was getting poorly, really being rehearsed hard, and I felt like I had a lot to prove.
Yeah, of course.
Because I was the ensemble girl who had never covered it that was now playing the lead.
I think I always say never count anyone out, because I worked with someone who was also not just swing, ASM swing with me in the West End, who then went on to play one of the biggest roles in the West End, playing someone green. From that.
Wow.
Never count anyone out and their talent. And I always say that to people, just because someone's the ensemble or their swing does not mean that they can't then go and play the part. Yeah. There's a real, it's almost like a hierarchy, isn't it? Which is I really don't like, and that needs to be out. But that's just like in life. I think even my sister, who was working for a council recently, just kept like going for different jobs in the council, and God, I'm very low, so I'm just looking at the microphone a bit higher, just sort of like my hi. Just that actually does happen it's not the same, and it's not the same intensity, but that does happen in workplaces as well. Oh, everyone's got their place to, we've all got a role to play somewhere. Yeah. But yeah, it was incredible, but it was terrifying. So I remember coming to watch the open dress of that. Did you? That was the memory I was going to share, but I was like, it might be a bit too stagey because we're going to talk about this anyway. But I do remember, because if you've not watched Mia, that it starts with you on stage. Yeah. The curtain comes up, and this is that thing when you're like, that's Tasha. She was in my year at college. I know her. It was. I know her. It was a bit, but I also was thinking. I remember thinking, God, how terrifying! I wouldn't want to be there. It is terrifying. It's a really terrifying way to start a show, because that overture is huge and loud and brilliant, and then it just goes to calm, and you're literally sitting there, heart pounding, and then you have to sing a really low note. And you just go, wow, does the writer hate women? What an awful way to have to start. I mean, I'm not going to lie, there were some nights where that note just didn't come out. Have a dream song to sing. Because if you're not settled, you just... Yeah. It's hard. And yeah, I just remember the curtain going up. And the thing with the open dress... For people that don't know what that is, it was the afternoon of the opening night, and friends and family were invited, so you had an audience.
Yeah. And there's a different atmosphere with an open dress. Not that there's not a great atmosphere on an opening night, but yeah, and I just remember the sort of the buzz of the people.
Don't they invite like the previous cast as well to it?
I think it is open for people to come watch it if they want to. Some do, and some are like, I'll come in a few weeks.
Yeah.
I just need to grieve this at the moment.
God, I sound like I'm stirring a bit there, sorry.
Well, it's a funny thing, isn't it? Some people find it really easy to go and watch something that they've been in, and some don't. I think it depends on how good or bad your experience was. And sometimes you just need a little bit of a break from it. I know when I left, I didn't go back to watch it for a few months, but I knew I wanted to go back and watch it. I just needed a bit of breathing time.
How would you differentiate? So, I mean, it's a massive difference. Even your your daily. God, what am I saying? Let's start again. How would you differentiate your first year in the show to the second show with, in a way, so much more responsibility?
I think my first year I was just footloose and fancy free, out all the time. Everything revolved around the show.
Yeah.
I would sleep in late, go for lazy coffees, go shopping around Topshop Oxford Street, go and do the show, have the time of my life. We'd then go out, get the night bus home because I was living in Maida Vale at the time. Just lovely.
Yeah.
Lovely, lovely.
And everyone should do that.
Yeah. And it's not that the year of Sophie wasn't lovely, lovely, but I had a lot. You're front and centre. You go to sing Name of the Game and you can't sing it because you were out the night before. That's on you.
Yeah.
People are going to talk. It's trying to build up that show stamina. And I mean, I will say there were nights that probably weren't my best. And also there's nights where you go, I have to go and do this because they know I was all out last night.
Yeah.
I have to do that. I'm not going to be that person that goes out and then calls off. If I'm sick, I'm sick.
Such a hard balance though, isn't it?
Yeah.
To still have a life, but rest.
And you feel that responsibility, and I like watching people and I like to see what they do, and I loved how the cast had been led the previous year, how professional Sophia was doing the role, Viv Parry as Donna, she really led that company. Kim Ismet, like our dynamos, I was like, that's what I want to be, a strong leading lady like they were. And I don't know if I fully achieved that, but I wanted to play that role of a leading lady and do a good job, which I think I did. And, then also things changed because I met a guy and fell in love with him. Oh, yeah. So that was then happening as well. So, and
was that in the second year?
That was in my second year. Because my sliding doors moment, if I come back to that, if I had taken Guys and Dolls, I would never have met my husband.
Yeah.
So we do laugh and joke and have a bit of dark humour of, God, where would my career be now if I'd have actually gone and done Guys and Dolls and worked with Jamie Lloyd and done that sort of... If I'd have gone that path and Michael Granditch, what would have happened there?
You might have had an affair with Ewan McGregor and you might be with him now.
Maybe.
Yeah, maybe.
Maybe. Maybe. So, yeah. So it was during that year that I met Adam. He joined the cast. He was sound number 2. And we met him coming to do a little mic check, little Sophie wiggle mic check that happens at the top of Act 2 where they come and wiggle the wires before she sings Under Attack. And I remember him coming onto the stage because, side note, I'd had an awful breakup on the show before that.
Okay.
And
my stomach keeps rumbling. I do apologise. I don't know why. Not sure if the microphone's picking it up.
And I just remember this guy walking onto stage and internally went, oh, God, not again, Tasha. Don't. No, Oh, you're going to fancy him. Oh, no, this is a disaster. This is a disaster. Fortunately, it was not a disaster. So that changed as well because I was then, you know, in a relationship and the birds are singing and the rabbits are talking to me and everything's lovely. So my experiences, so I have such a warmth and a love about Mamma Mia. I feel about Mamma Mia the way I feel about Arts Ed.
That's lovely.
I feel that because we always say if you've done Mamma Mia, you never leave the island. It's a real family. And I feel the same about that is like that with Arts Ed. If you meet somebody and they say they went to Arts Ed, whether they graduated 10 years before you, 10 years after you, you all go, yeah.
It's a family, yeah.
Get it. I get it. So yeah, it was a great my time. I loved my time at Mamma Mia. I loved it. It's a show I hope to go back to and play Donna.
Yeah. Which I love. I mean, you told me that the other night, and I think that's so lovely. And I just love anyone that just goes through life without bitterness. If I'm honest, like so many people do still go through life with bitterness, this and that. And I know people have bad experiences, but it's just so lovely to hear that. So now you're a leading lady, do you now feel pressure wherever you go to next? Oh, I know I need to play parts, I need to be a leading lady, because that is something that happened to you very quickly, and from speaking to other people that have done it said it's actually then gets even harder.
It was even harder because where do you go from that? Your first job out of college, where do you go? And it's safe to say my pride was dented because I didn't just walk straight into another leading role. I think Mamma Mia and Sophie was the right role at the right time. It was just all the elements coming together in that moment.
Yeah.
Because I don't think I'm not your atypical juvenile lead. I'm not the ingenue. That's, you know, at college I was always told when you're older, you're not going to come into your own until you're in your 40s, when you're older. So to play Sophie was a bit left field because suddenly I was playing a lead in my mid-20s. And didn't walk into another lead. Haven't yet since. There's still time.
Do you think it's funny because when you are that age and you're told, oh, when you're in your 40s, we were 21, 22, that's nearly 20 years. And at the time you're like, that's ages.
Either way.
I'm not waiting that long. Now we're there, you go, yeah, and actually that's exciting that you've still got that. And I'm no doubt you will.
Oh, I will.
I'm not saying no doubt you will. But how exciting is that you have that to look forward to still, but with all that life experience behind you.
Yeah.
And we'll talk about the difference of working now and perspective.
Yeah.
And things like that. To list a few credits, just like we don't want to focus on that, but you did Mamma Mia, Carousel, Evita, you've obviously then gone on School of Rock, which we'll talk about later, which is a completely different experience.
Yeah.
I loved hearing the story about that. But what was going on at the time for you as well with that? I mean, you're with Adam.
So I'm with Adam, and the show finishes. I don't go straight into another job. I am knackered after leaving that job. Knackered. That role is hard work. That show is high energy, and I was exhausted. Something I need to take forward in life for the next time I play an exhausting leading role is how I recover at the end of that contract.
Yeah.
Because I didn't fully cool down from that job. Because you're hustling, you're back in, you're auditioning, and it just felt like it was taking time. It wasn't taking time. Now I can see that. But I think I just wanted to be able to go straight into that leading role straight away. But I didn't have the experience behind me. It wasn't like other people that had, that Sophie was their fourth or fifth leading role. This is my first one. It's not, doesn't just happen. I started temping, doing all sorts of jobs. Did a stint doing Sophie in China for a week and a half on the international tour when everybody was ill for a bit. That was fun. And then I had huge amount of fun working backstage at Spamalot.
I remember this.
Yes. And I think I would rate it up there as one of my best theatre experiences. And I wasn't even in the show. I mean, actually, I am still on hold for a cast change. They never fully released me for a Lady of the Lake cover. So
you're still waiting.
I might get it. It could happen.
But I also want to say, because I did Spamalot in the West End and I was swinging ASM, so
Spamalot backstage.
Spamalot backstage crew.
I love that. You know, I was a dresser, and of course, if I'm going to be a dresser, I'm going to be a principal dresser because, you know, I'm not mucking around. So yeah, you know, and I dressed that unknown star, Hannah Waddingham, and don't know what became of her.
I don't know.
Nothing.
She may come up in another podcast with someone else, actually.
She dressed her and the unbelievably incredible Maren Maisie, who came over from Broadway, who's sadly no longer alive. She was incredible. And again, when I was saying before about how I like to watch people and see what they do and how they lead a company, Maren was this Broadway star that came over. And she was the most humble, lovely person I've probably ever had the pleasure of knowing. She would get ready as fast as she could, and then she'd put her makeup brush right down, turn to me and go, "What have you been up to today?"
Oh, lovely.
"And what was your mum's name again?" And what? And she was just lovely. She asked, you know, she wanted things done in a certain way, and we were all very nervous before she arrived. She was adamant about how she would get out to see the cast. She said, "I don't want the first time I see the cast to be when we're on stage together. It has to be. I have to see them beforehand." Just lovely, really, really lovely. It was great fun working on Spamalot. All, you know, still good friends with all the ASMs. Adam was then the head of sound, so you know we all like to keep it in the family, work together. And then what would I have got? Yeah, then it was Carousel. Then, another sliding doors moment. I got offered The Sound of Music and I got offered Carousel at the same time. Chose Carousel.
It was in London, right?
That was in London.
Yeah, which is nice because touring is amazing, but if you can stay in London.
Yeah, we did have a short tour.
Usually we will, yeah.
And then it came into town. Then I had great fun because I met Leslie Garrett on that show. She was playing our Nettie. In between jobs, I was her PA. What? Touring around with Leslie Garrett as her PA.
This is, do you know what? I love we're talking about this, and one of the reasons in this podcast is it is just as interesting what people have done in between performing jobs, because they are just as important.
Yeah.
In our careers a lot of the time, and what we learn and what it leads on to, and that's so nice you saying on Spamalot was one of your best theatrical experiences.
Oh, I loved it. I loved it so much. I would put on the costume and be dancing it in the wing. Slip, flap, slip, slap away, slip,
the fish,
slap, flap away.
I can't remember the lyrics. It's terrible. That wasn't that long ago.
So loved it. Loved it. So we did Carousel. My great friends, you know, some great connections on that.
And the PA?
Was PA. Ended up being PA for Leslie. About a year later after that. And then went to do Evita on tour. Mm-hmm. And that's when the vocal death of 2009 hit. Yeah. Absolute vocal death. Can't talk, can't sing, can't do anything. Awful. Horrendous.
Did you see this happening? Was it just honestly out of the blue for you?
So when I was doing Carousel, so at college I was always the Rodgers and Hammerstein girl. I didn't really know how to belt. Doing, you know, a pop musical of Mamma Mia was never really what I was singing at college. So going into Carousel, I was like, well, this is what I should be able to sing, because I was always, you know, a light soprano. And do that. But again, going back to the fact of saying I didn't warm down properly from Mamma Mia, that shift of using my voice from singing those songs, which are all in one place, to then trying to sing a Rodgers and Hammerstein score. And sometimes I was like, this is just a bit hard work. I'm not lasting 8 shows a week. I'm not getting to the end of the week with a full voice. Buried my head in the sand. Didn't go for my singing lessons. Hindsight's a lovely thing. I think had I sorted it out earlier on, I may not have gotten to the point of vocal death at the end of that year.
But you never, when you're that young and people didn't talk about stuff as much, then
you weren't allowed to have vocal problems.
Yeah, and like shame.
Yeah, you could break your leg, but if you lost your voice, flaky.
That's your fault. Yeah,
can't hire her again. And you know, and I needed to work, and I got offered Evita, so okay, yeah, I'll go and do that. Cover Ava on tour, battering my vocal folds. And for those that don't know, the role of Ava Peron is one hell of a sing. One hell of a sing.
And an emotional
Especially
journey.
when you're trying to do that and you're doing your ensemble track as well. Being an understudy is really, really hard work because you can get your stamina on one track, but then trying to get your stamina for all your covers as well is really, really hard. And it was during an understudy call, during the death scene, my voice literally cut out. Nothing came out at all. And I just remember doing this bit, and it's when Ava has the surge. So you've done You Must Love Me, and then she's got the squares and avenues, da, 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 and she's getting out of bed, and literally it went. And I turned to the guy that was, you know, cover Peron. He was like, "You're right." Okay. And the MD went, "Just carry on, just mime it, just carry on." Like, oh God. And it was awful. I had to leave the contract early, only 2 weeks early, because I was like, this needs to be operated on. Something's gone.
So did you have to, I mean, that must have been horrible and scary and mentally a lot. Did you have to go and see a vocal doctor like straight away?
So I'd had a camera down just during that contract, just to have a look. And then it was like, you need to have surgery on this. And there was a date that I could have had it done privately if I could get out of the contract. They wouldn't release me from the contract. They were like, just stay and mime. I was like, I'm not staying and miming. I'm not doing that.
That's mad.
And I felt such shame because out of everything, my voice was always the easiest thing. Dancing I had to work hard on. Acting I always needed a kick up the backside for. Singing, that's my easy thing. I can't sing. I can't even talk. I can't even whistle, and I am an exceptional whistler. I'm actually a better whistler than I am a singer. And I was devoid of all personality because I couldn't do anything with my voice. I couldn't make silly voices, or I could, I'm somebody that likes to make people laugh and have fun, and suddenly I'm being pulled out of a contract and I'm having vocal surgery. This is horrendous. This is awful. And it was really bleak. And I had months of speech therapy, extra singing lessons.
Can you tell us, I mean, you don't have to, but what, because out of interest, I mean, firstly, I want to say this can happen to anyone. Like, this is the shame about it, that if people's voices go, it's because their technique was wrong or this or that. But no, it's just not.
It's one of those things.
It's just one of those things. What had actually happened to your...
So, because they sort of hypothesised, because I hadn't had a camera down there when I first lost my voice, I perhaps had some sort of cyst or bleed or something that had happened. And it was where it had tried to heal itself. Some of the scar tissue had attached itself to the wall next to the vocal folds. So I wasn't getting full closure of my vocal folds. One side was working really, really hard, and it was closing probably about 80%. But then where you have that gap was where you have that total breathiness.
Yeah.
Has she got a bit of a cold or a cough?
Yeah.
So they needed to basically cut that scar tissue, put in a bit of polyfiller, as my surgeon said, and then retrain how to get these vocal folds
to
close again and to remember what to do. And it was really, really hard. So I can't audition. I can't. What am I gonna do? Luckily, I was getting married in the June of 2010.
Mm-hmm.
So the line was, oh no, she's not available for that because she's getting married. So that was kind of a nice, easy excuse. So then I was very much like, well, once I'm after the wedding, I'll be able,
Yeah.
I'll be able to sing. And I worked, and I obviously, I got up and sang at the wedding. Nobody knew I was going to do it, but I was like, no, I can do it. I've got my voice back. I'm going to do it. So all guns blazing. Let's audition. Let's get back into it. And got back off of our honeymoon, and I was pregnant. And then sat on the sofa, burst into tears, and went, my career's over.
So maybe may have been the hormones as well.
Holding the clear blue. My career's over. It's over. It's over. I'm just again. Awful. Obviously not awful, because I had a lovely daughter, but yeah, it did feel.
Yeah.
It's like, that's going to set me back even more, and I'm never going to get back. I'm never going to get back into this. I'm never going to do it. I'm never going to do it.
Well, these are two massive things that have changed. Firstly, having vocal problems, and it not being because you're not looking after yourself, it being because these things happen, and also being a mother, and it not being the end. With all these things that we've seen happen where people have shared a role and all this amazing stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was hard. But, had my lovely baby. And yeah, so then for a while, I was in the haze of early motherhood. Dipping the toe into auditions every now and again. But it's a different experience because you've got a lot more going on at home this time.
Yeah.
And the business isn't your only focus.
Yeah.
And you're navigating who's looking after that child while you're running in for that 5-minute commercial, and Adam's at work, right, so where am I, who's going to do that, right, well, I'll run into Charing Cross, dump them with them in Pret, and then I'll run in to do that audition and get them, and then I'll get home. It was hard, and and life is going on, and Daisy was then, what was she then, be sort of 18 months coming to 2, my dad was really ill at the time, and I'm still desperately wanting to work and I'm wanting to do stuff. But thank God I didn't get those jobs and didn't get that contracts, because my dad was really ill, and I was splitting my weeks driving up and down the motorway and going back home and trying to support them there whilst looking after, my own child. And then he's well, he's in remission and things are great. And we're on a holiday to Australia, me and Adam, because he's over there opening Les Mis in Australia. Come back. I'm pregnant again, lovely, and go for my scan. And I want to say that my first scan was a similar, if not the same day, within the same week of my dad going for one of his checkups.
Mm-hmm.
And his cancer had come back, and I just remember thinking, oh my God, he's not gonna survive this. I'm gonna have a baby. He's not gonna be here. Not because I was being pessimistic about it, I was being realistic about it, because cancer is hard, and when you've seen somebody go through treatment through that once, and you know that they're now going through that again because they have no other choice but to, it's not good. And auditions were then pausing again. I was auditioning. I remember going into my final for Beautiful. I had about 6 or 7 auditions. By the time I got into the final, I was 5 weeks pregnant, reading all these roles, thinking, I'm not in the room. Get me out of this room. I'm pregnant and my dad's ill. Just get me out of the room. Get me out of the room. And he very sadly passed away when I was 7 months pregnant with my youngest. And so it just, life was going on. Life still needs to happen. Showbiz is great and we love it. But life is still going on. The theatre will always be there.
Absolutely.
My dad is he's not always here. Like, you do have to take those moments. And sometimes when you're in it, it feels like it's forever. But it isn't. It isn't. Because then, another 18 months goes past and I'm starting rehearsals for School of Rock, and suddenly I'm like, well, what's happened there? How did that happen? When did that happen? What? Yeah. Oh my God. And I've now got to negotiate rehearsals and a show with 2 children, and my husband's out the country for 10 weeks. What? So
it's like completely...
It's completely different.
Completely different perspective. I mean, thank you for sharing your journey of grief with that, because as I was saying, that's one thing that massively connects us all. And I always say, look back to all our wonderful parents and memories of them coming to watch our
Oh,
shows.
they loved it.
And that was another family in itself. I remember pretty much everyone's parents and how special. And
they all loved it. They all loved it, and they loved not just seeing us, their children. They loved seeing everybody. Oh, I remember when they did that in the last show, didn't they? They loved it. Such special memories. For sure.
Really is. And I mean, I don't know if you thought at the time, but back then I didn't think about losing a parent at that point. And now I'm so lucky to still have both my parents. I'm so lucky. And that's because unfortunately so many people like yourself have been through grief. I'm more attentive to them now and perspective. But wow, 2 children going through that, and then you get offered a job. And
then I'm offered a job.
And
in
so
School of Rock with about 3 weeks' notice.
Yeah. So this is what was great. Describe the difference of being a 22-year-old in the West End of Mamma Mia in the ensemble to being I don't know if you're in your 30s with 2 children in School of Rock with a husband working away. What I will say as well is how amazing, like, because you both work in the theatre and to manage to do that.
Well, should we give him 60 minutes?
Yes, we
60
have to give
seconds of airtime.
As I said, I did live with him, Adam, briefly.
You did live with him briefly.
In the cockroach-infested flat where a wasp crawled into my ear and stung me in the middle of the night.
Happy times. Happy times. So he is a sound designer. Yeah. Very, very excellent sound designer. So we met on Mamma Mia, and he was a lowly sound number 2, and he's now very well established sound designer. He's just opened Sunset Boulevard at the Savoy.
Someone actually mentioned to me the other day, if he doesn't get nominated for this,
well, he better get. What
What
am I going to wear to the award ceremony? Oh my God. So he was the associate sound designer on School of Rock. He was with School of Rock from its inception at the Gramercy over in New York, opened it on Broadway, did it in London. We went over to Australia when he opened it over there. He's done it pretty much everywhere. So we already knew that he was involved in the show, and then me getting the job was quite late and close to rehearsal starting. So I was like, we're both going to be in tech at the same time. And we've got a 6-year-old and a nearly 2-year-old at home. How does that work? Because like I said earlier, my whole day revolved around going in to do Mamma Mia, lazy coffees, shopping, this, that, and t'other. Oh my God, no, now you're up early because the kids are early. Are they in school today? You're taking them to school. You're getting the bus down to school. You're trying to do the reading with them on the bus down to school because you haven't got time to do the reading with them in the evening because you're not there in the evenings because you're a selfish woman that's chosen to go to work. Try and get everything done in the day. If my youngest wasn't in preschool, she was with me all day, and I'm trying to do every activity group, every singing and dancing group because I've got to be a good mum because I'm working and I'm not there at the weekends and I'm working Saturday and a Sunday because there's Sunday matinees because the theatre hates families. And you pick the kids up from school. Have they got a club? You might be taking them swimming because you can fit that in. You've got about a 45-minute window to fit in the swimming. Right, you get them home, throw them to whoever is looking after them that night. Okay, can you drive them there? If you can do that from there, you drive them to there. Then my mum will come back later on. She'll be there to pick them up from that, and then that'll happen there. Yeah, great. Okay, put them in. Try and give them a nutritious meal because I'm working, so I'm feeling guilty now that my kids are at home and I'm not home. Let's try and give them a healthy meal. Legging it to the train, getting on the train, collapsing on the train, usually having a sleep. I'd take my eye mask on the train to have a sleep. Pegging it across Charing, out of Charing Cross up through to Covent Garden. I would literally fall onto that stage for warm-up at 6:15. Do the show, get home, wake up and do it all over again. If it's a Saturday morning, you're not getting up late, you're getting up because, maybe I could squeeze and they could both have a ballet class then. Right, so I'll do that. I'll take that one to ballet. While that one's at ballet, I'm going to go and take that one for a little chocochino and a little muffin so I can have some one-on-one time with her. And then she's going to go to the next ballet class. And then I'm going to have a quick coffee and another hot chocolate with my other daughter. And I'll try and have that time with her. And then I'm going to throw them. No, Adam's not there. No, Adam's not here because he's also in tech. Okay, right. Chaos. Yeah. Absolute chaos. I mean, not to mention when he was out the country for 10 weeks doing... Yeah. What shows he was even doing on Broadway at that time? I can't remember.
Definitely not a selfish mum, though. I will say, I think it's great that you still go out and do what you love, because not only do you deserve that, but I think it's really important for your children to see that you still get to do what you love. But hats off to you. And it really made me realise, you telling me that story the other day, how hard that is. I'd actually did spam a lot with a couple that had 2 kids, and their mum had to move down from Manchester just so they could do the show.
It's so hard. It's not made easier, and the pressure on parents to always be there.
Yeah.
The eye rolling that happens if you have to call off because your child is sick needs to change.
Yeah.
6-day rehearsal weeks should not be happening. Whether you're a parent or not, that shouldn't be happening. Getting call times through at 10:30 at night for the next day shouldn't be happening. We need to know what's happening. You know, doing 8 shows a week is far easier than being at home and being a parent.
Yeah.
Going to work was the easiest part of my day, and I worked on a show that had 3 teams of children, and I was dance captain on it. Like, that was the easy part.
Yeah.
Navigating home, trying to give all of your time to the kids, then trying to explain to them why you're not there every night to read them a story every night to go to bed. You know, seeing their little faces, and it's hard. It's not easy. And, you know, even going on now, there's jobs that I just can't even audition for because I'm like, I cannot make that work.
Yeah.
It's my first thought. How will that work for the children? They don't see that. They just see mummy going off to do work or mummy go to do a gig. They don't know the 4 things I've turned down.
Yeah.
Or how I'm still going to watch that class or still go and watch that lesson and then still run it. Kids don't see that because you're a kid. You don't.
How long did you do the show for as well?
On and off for 3 years. It's a long time.
So it's just normality after a while?
It just became normal.
Yeah.
They got used to it. I mean, my kids are so blasé about being in a theatre. They just think they can run around. You know, we had great experience. They've been to some great opening nights, but Adam sound designed The Wizard of Oz this year that opened at the Palladium Clang, and they just run around the auditorium like they own the joint.
Yeah.
They're like, well, I always run around the auditorium. What do you mean I can't run around?
Yeah.
It's just they're not fazed by it. They're like, oh.
I remember it's amazing that I actually worked for someone whose dad used to do all the sets, and she said that in the 80s she went on tour with Michael Jackson because her dad and just remembers like running up and down the stadium while Michael Jackson was on stage. How mad is that? Like, because that's their normality.
It's just not. It's just normal.
I think you hear about it. They look back and go, "Oh, it's great."
I hope so. I hope they do. And things are changing to make it easier for parents, but there is a long way to go. You know, one prime example, wanting to bring the kids in for a warm-up near Christmas. Oh, I can't have the kids in. Well, there's loads of kids in the show. Well, you know, the licensing, it might be weird if your kids are there. People might think that they're like unlicensed children. I think we can clearly tell that my now, you know, 3 and 7-year-old aren't supposed to be in the show. Yeah. But if Adam, as the associate sound designer, wanted to bring his children in to watch the warm-up, there was no question of it. Yeah. So I was like, what?
So it's a sexist thing.
I'm like, what? So is it a status thing that he's the associate designer so he can bring his children in, but I'm just a cast member so I can't? Yeah. Very, very strange. Very,
it's
very
very interesting
strange.
Difference. When we did Spamalot, actually, it was an older cast. We constantly had kids running around the stage. It was, I mean, maybe it wasn't safe, but it was amazing. So
what if they run into the pit? I'm not going to let them run into the pit.
Putting the costumes on and it's great. And you remember when that show did finish? Were you exhausted, or were you just by that point you're just like, oh?
I mean, I'm exhausted all the time.
So
whether I'm doing a show or not, I'm exhausted all the time. At least when you're doing a show, it's mental, but you know what your schedule is for a year. Yeah. What's hard now when I hate saying when I'm out of work, when I'm trying to use the phrase, I'm just not in a contract at the moment. Because my out of work, I'm probably busier than when I'm doing 8 shows a week. Yeah. Because it's a gig here, it's a gig there, it's teaching here, it's teaching there. And it's full-time mumming whilst doing that.
And also, what's the difference? Because we're all just living
Yeah.
and learning.
Yeah.
So we have these life experiences. So when we do other things, we can probably do them better.
And it's
And
really
with more
hard.
perspective.
Yeah, and I'm quite hard on myself because I'm like, well, I'm not working at the moment. Which I know with a logical.
Yeah, but I mean, we
cap on.
all do that at some point. But yeah, it's good to address that to yourself and go, stop putting pressure on yourself. Like,
Yeah.
you're not. You mentioned to me as well that at the end of that contract, you got to go away with your family for a while,
Yeah.
which was amazing.
Well, yeah. So the show was then opening over in Australia. Go for 6 weeks. Because I could have stayed on performing with the show, but I was like, I cannot miss this life experience of going to Australia for 6 weeks. My mum came, my auntie came. We had a blast.
Yeah.
Absolute blast. I mean, don't get me wrong. Sometimes it was just same shit, different location, and the kids were hard work.
Yeah.
But what an experience.
Yeah.
What an experience to go to Australia and do that. Oh, Daddy's opening a show over here, so we're here for 6. Like,
Amazing.
what world am I living in? What world am I living in? That's
and we know
that's crazy.
I mean, I don't know all of us. Some people were quite good when we were younger, just taking those opportunities. But I know for a fact, my 20s, I was like, can't go anywhere. Don't want to miss.
Might get an audition. Might get an audition. Might get an audition.
Ridiculous when you get older that you would do that.
Yeah. So that was great, and I would do that again in a heartbeat because that was brilliant.
Yeah.
And then COVID hit, and then it all went wrong. And then it all went wrong.
How was as a mum and as a family? How was those 2 to 3 years for you?
Absolutely horrendous.
Oh God.
Scarred deeply from it. It was awful, 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 awful. Because I don't know how to teach. As much as I thought I wanted to be a primary school teacher when I was growing up.
Yeah.
Trying to homeschool kids in that environment, I would do it all so differently now. I look back and go, no, we should have just said no to that homeschooling, but you're trying to get some structure in your day. It was hard, you know, we're both self-employed. All the work dried up, so all the savings went. It was hard, dark times. Because neither of us had that steady job. We both worked in the arts. I mean, nothing was happening. Fortunately, there was some sort of retainers that Adam would get for the shows that he was associated with. Thank God, but I got nothing. I was teaching, you know, 6 fitness classes a week live from my kitchen, just trying to get a bit of Sainsbury's money, you know.
We should talk about that as well, that you are a fitness instructor and you're kind of... Do you call it a love for fitness? I mean, you do.
Yeah, it is. I do love it, which is ironic considering how rubbish I was at it at college and everything. I grew to love it by finding some great group exercise classes when working in town. And I was like, I enjoy it. I think I could teach this because look where the instructor is. Front centre. I could do that. It feeds my show-offiness.
Yeah.
And I now really love doing it.
And you're helping people.
I love meeting people. If I had the ability to write a screenplay, I think I could write something really good about group exercise classes.
Don't count it out.
I feel very honoured to share the time with the people that come to these classes, the stories they share with me, life experiences they share with me, the friendships I've made from these classes are what get me through the day, the week. They are brilliant. And I've still got a really loyal group of women who came to all of my classes during lockdown, and still once a week we'll meet up on Zoom and we'll do a workout together. And I'm so thankful for that, because if I hadn't had that during lockdown, I would have had no focus whatsoever.
Yeah.
And it was hard because it was soul destroying and relentless at times. But it gave me something to do when there was nothing else to do.
That's beautiful. It's, you know what, as I've got older, I mean, I was never a gym bunny, but I've always loved exercise as well. And I love group exercise classes. But now one of the only things that motivates me is group exercise. And I say to anyone that is like demotivated or this and that, or is just scared to go, is just be like, honestly, do it. Because the ironic thing, it's like when as an actor you go to workshops, you're so scared, but actually everyone that goes to those wants to be better.
Yeah.
So you're not going to get that judgment as much as you think you are. And it's the same with group exercise. People want to be there.
Yes.
So just do it. Like if you're listening to this right now and you're like, oh, I just can't motivate myself, find a class, try something till you find what you like. You might go to box size, you might not like that. That's fine. You might go to this, you might not. You might go to Pilates. Oh, this is for me.
And to know that we're all finding it hard in the room.
Yeah.
And that's something I'm definitely finding now. I'm approaching years in my life where my hormones are different and my body is different and things are changing. Trying to find that motivation to move and exercise, even as a fitness professional, I find really hard. So if you're finding it hard to get to that room and to do it, know that the instructor's probably feeling, unless they're 21, they're fine. They're 21. I don't know what they're doing. They're fine. But especially this new age I'm, going into, it is hard, and it's even more important. But it is hard to motivate yourself, and I find that hard to do as well. If I'm not the one leading the class, I'm probably not doing it.
Yeah.
Because I can be a bit lazy, and I'm just knackered. I'm knackered all the time.
I'm the same.
Just exhausted.
I find it really hard to motivate myself at the minute, and no shame in saying that.
Yeah.
I'm just over that, and I never was. I was like 3, 4, 5 exercise classes a week at one point. But that's beautiful. Thank you for sharing that, because I always know that it's funny as well when we were young and we had like gym class and these things at college and Pilates, but we're all like so much fitter now, I think.
Oh, so much fitter.
All of us.
Yeah. And I think what I think maybe the difference is we realise that we need to eat well and move for our heads as well as our bodies.
Yeah.
Whereas back then, exercise was the punishment. You have to look a certain way.
Yeah.
You have to go and run on that treadmill. You have to do this because you have to be thin. Well, that certainly was for me. And it's still something I have to work on even now. Am I doing this workout in the right way? Because if I'm doing this exercise regime for the next 3 weeks because I'm desperately trying to lose weight or think I have to be a certain way, that's not healthy. But if I'm doing this because I know my head is going to feel better for it, and if things are a little bit firmer, great.
Yeah.
But it's hard, that sort of punishment cycle of exercise that we can fall into. And I still can fall into it because I think it's deeply ingrained
in us.
It really is, as much as we try to fight
but
it.
Some people didn't take it on and some of us did, and I always did. I was like you. And it's so funny, it's completely different. It sounds ridiculous to say, but mine and a few other boys was told to put on weight. You're like, your arms are too small. And I was like, one of those balloons.
Yeah.
I look at a lot of us were like that, but I was 18.
You're young.
Yeah.
You haven't finished growing.
No, and I was so weak. Like I'd never done weights and stuff.
Yeah.
But what they were just trying to say, if you want to work more, because at the time things like Jamie didn't exist. Because if they'd been about, I would have been like doing all this on stage. But those jobs were just not available at the time. But actually luckily for me, that didn't scar me, and I found a love of it. But I also am very grateful that I'm not like, oh, my biceps aren't big enough, my chest needs to be that, my waist is bigger than it was a few years ago. Kind of don't care. If I'm honest.
How lovely, yeah.
If I'm honest, if I can't put that pressure on myself. So, come out of lockdown, leading up to now, how would you describe that and where you're at right now?
Oh, it's still hard because for all the best intentions of trying to sing and working on your craft, I think we're all changed deeply.
Yeah.
Post-COVID. And the playing field in the business is different. People aren't taking the risks. Those that were in shows when lockdown happened were the lucky ones, because bar a few, most got re-offered those jobs and they carried on. and you're not seeing the movement in shows that you used to.
Yeah.
Because everything's now so expensive. People aren't going to take the risk of being out of work for a few months or a year. They're going to stay in that contract where they know it's booking for another 18 months. And who can blame them?
Yeah.
Who
Especially
can
if they've got
blame them?
kids and families to look after.
And I know that as a mum, my thoughts in it are different, and there's some things that I want to push for and I want to be seen for, and then there are other times where I go, my focus and attention is needed at home right now. You know, I have a preteen, I have an 8-year-old, and they need me there a little bit.
Yeah.
So sometimes when jobs don't work out, and there have been some contracts that I've been so close for this last calendar year that I haven't got, and then something happens at home and you go, I'm actually really glad I was here tonight for that. If I'd have had to have been rushing out the door at 5 o'clock now for warm up, that wouldn't have been good. But it's hard because in the here and now it feels like a really long time, and I know it won't be, because in a few years' time I'll be back in a contract, or it could be next year. But that's the thing with this business, you just don't know. It changes on a dime. School of Rock offer comes in and I'm starting rehearsals in 3 weeks' time. You just don't know when it will happen. It's trying to enjoy the moment while it's happening, and that's something I'm still working on. That's something I'm still working on and will be working on.
Wayne said last week he really struggles to relax just because we're those people. I'm the same, and it's how a lot of us are. I mean, you could put it down to a training, but I do also think it's just how a lot of us are wired.
It's the hustle. It's the hustle. You're always looking for that next job. It really is. And you know, Adam's always like, just sit down. I can't. Always faffing. I'm always doing. And I think because we're creatives, there's something always buzzing.
Yeah.
And I've said to countless friends, it would be so much easier if I just didn't want to do it anymore. If I could just go, do you know what? No, I'm all right.
Yeah.
I'm okay. But I'm not, because I'll hear or I'll watch a new piece of theatre and I'll be like, no, I want to do that.
Yeah.
I want to do that. So, which I'm thrilled about.
Yeah.
But also it would be way easier.
Has anyone ever come up to you and asked the toxic question, one that I want to eradicate from the industry, and use the phrase, oh, have you given up now?
Oh, I hate it.
Because I'm like, the older I got, I was like, I really want to talk about this and I want this to be a conversation. What does that mean?
Yeah.
Because it puts performing on such a pedestal that it means that anything else you're doing isn't as important. Or
as valid. Yeah.
It's like, what, on life? No, because I'm still here.
Yeah. Like,
yeah.
Oh, do you not want to be in a show at the moment? Oh, I'd love to be. Are you casting one? Oh, you'd be great in EastEnders. Yeah, you're going to give me...
No, not the EastEnders one. Have you done anything I know? No, because if I had, you would recognise me and be like, you were in that one.
Oh, you'd be good in that show. Why aren't you in that?
And you know, these people have good intentions, but then, to be honest, I am more talking about people within the industry that say it to other people. Like, just before you ask that question, just think. Firstly, ask, how are you?
Yeah.
It's fine to ask, what are you up to, as long as you mean in life and not in a job. But don't go up to someone and say, have you given up now? Because it's so toxic. It's
so toxic. And do you know what? I would place a bet that in our first or second acting class at Arts Ed, I can remember Ursula saying to us, never ask somebody, what are you up, what are you doing? And she said, because believe you me, if they are working, they will tell you. And never was a truer word said. If somebody is working, that's going to come out in the conversation. Yeah. You don't need to ask if they're in something, because if they're not, and then they're feeling, less than because they can't say they're in something. And it's so true. You don't need to. People will tell you. Someone will tell you if they're in a job.
Yeah.
If you left, no.
This podcast was actually originally called "What Have You Been Up To," which was like it was either that or "Life After Jazz Hands," just because it's that renowned phrase that everyone says. Oh, and I wanted to put a spin on it, but we stuck with...
I like Life After Jazz Hands.
Which actually, I have to say, Holly Dale Spencer, it was her concept, because we were talking about it. And I was like, she jokingly went, Life After Jazz Hands, and I went,
that's it, God. That's the name, that's the one, that's it.
That's it. quickly to go, I'd say, you know, when you use full circle, I'd say you also did half circle, as in you slightly returned to Mamma Mia.
Well, I do have a PhD in ABBA.
Yeah.
I do a lot of ABBA. Thank God for ABBA. I spent most of last year doing Mamma Mia the Party at the O2. I bloody loved it. I absolutely loved it. I was such a snob going into that job. I was like, I think I'm going to hate this. I think this is going to be awful because I've done it in town.
Well, can you explain the difference as well? Is that it's such
fully
a different experience.
It's a fully immersive.
And when you're used to just
experience,
people in the audience and I'm here, you lose that protection.
Yeah, it is brilliant. It's some of the most fun I've had on a job. But yeah, it can be crazy because it's a different general public every night who are out on a night out having their dinner and having a drink. Literally anything can happen.
Yeah.
Whilst you're still doing this show, but it was, you know, you've got musicians walking around. You know, I'm walking around a fountain playing a guitar, and then you have a massive mega mix at the end, and you sing all of the ABBA hits. I loved it. I loved it so much. Yeah. It was so much fun. I love ABBA.
Yeah.
Had a good career off of it.
So just got to do.
Just got to go black and bake.
And then Voyage. Voyage. Just got to get the hologram of Tasha Sheridan.
A hologram of Tasha.
And then full circle when you go back and play Donna, which will happen.
Which will happen.
All decided. And this has been amazing. Like, we've covered so much, and thank you so much for sharing your journey. And I'd love to have you back at some point with some others to talk about. So much more to talk about. But this one thing I do always ask people a few things. But firstly, if you went back to Tasha now, who's just starting Arts Ed, what would you tell her now?
Am I allowed to read my homework letter that I did?
I'm also going to, I think, lower your microphone a bit because we just want this for the camera. So I'm so method.
Okay. That when you asked me this, and I was thinking, how am I going to answer that? And I thought, you know what, I'm going to actually write the letter because my singing teacher's always telling me I should journal or whatever.
Yeah. And this is how you will write this thing about fitness, the more you write.
So I was like, I'm going to write it.
Okay.
Look at my scrappy writing. This is how can I read my writing and see properly. Okay, don't cry, Tasha. Dear Tasha, it's here. It's not a dream. Today is your first day at Arts Ed. The world really is yours for the taking, but it's not going to be easy. You will work harder than ever before, but I promise you it will be worth it. Do I have some knowledge now I'm 20 years older? I'm not sure about that. A little. But it's safe to say I'm still discovering things about myself and my place in the world. Firstly, you are not fat. You're 19. And although you don't feel it, you are beautiful. Speak kindly to yourself about your body and appearance, and I say this as much for present and future Tasha as much as past Tasha. Eat. Eat well. Fuel and nourish your body. The business is tough. 8 shows a week requires stamina. Eat. Try not to compare yourself to others. It's not easy. If you're feeling jealous about what someone else can do, figure out a way for you to do that for yourself. Learn from them and your perceived success of them. How high you can belt or sing is not a marker of your talent. You're a storyteller. Through the years, you will find that you are able to move people when you sing, when you're connected to the story and you stay truthful to yourself. Not everyone is going to like you, and that's okay. Maybe take a breath or a pause and see whether you really need to respond or not. There's so much joy ahead, not just in work, but in your personal life. There will be heartaches along the way, but it will be worth it. Life is terrifyingly short. So treasure those moments with your loved ones. Leading a West End show truly is the amazing experience you think it is going to be. And finally, stop spending money on your credit cards. Save for your tax. Put money aside for singing lessons. Eat the cake, and please realise before your late 30s to wear sunscreen every single day.
Amen.
Lots of love. Tasha.
Thank you, Tasha. Move the mic. Should we have a hug?
Thank you so
Oh,
much. That was
God.
so beautiful. That's going to go viral.